when there was all this hype regarding the Browns and that they were going to go to the Super Bowl, you were always pessimistic about this team and all these personalities being together, and it didn't pan out as expected. Do you think it was a mistake for the Browns to draft him 1 overall?
I think so. And that's not to sit up there and act like Baker Mayfield can't play, because I know that he can play. He's not a scrub. But me personally, I thought that Sam Darnold might have been the better fit. He's 2 years younger. He's about 2 to 3 inches taller. He's bigger. That definitely has something to do with it. But more importantly, he doesn't talk nearly as much as Baker Mayfield, inciting dudes to come at him in an even more ferocious fashion just to shut him the hell up. And that's what Baker Mayfield does. It's great for us as media members who get paid to commentate and pontificate about a lot of different things. But the reality is that if you're Baker Mayfield or you're the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield finds himself as the quarterback, putting them in more bad situations than good. We know that he threw 21 touchdowns last year. We know that he completed less than 60% of his passes. Sam Darnold certainly didn't have that issue. By the way, Sam Darnold was 7-6 in his 13 starts. We know what Baker Mayfield's record was. He won only 6 games last year. He had more commercials with Progressive than he did actual wins. That's an absolute truth. Just check it out. I'm talking about different versions of Progressive commercials. He had more of those than wins on the NFL football field last season. And that's just pathetic. And so I look at it right now and I just say to myself, Baker Mayfield has upside. He can play. He's not a scrub. But when I think about the quarterback position, Dan and Max, what I think about is not just your ability to throw the football, as I've said on repeated occasions. It's your ability to lead and to galvanize folks to follow you. I think when you look at Baker Mayfield as an individual talent, you know he can play. He's not a scrub. And you recognize what he did in college. He's a Heisman Trophy winner, for crying out loud, and walked on and did all of those things. Got a lot of guts, a lot of moxie. But when you talk about leading troops on this level, I just think that he falls flagrantly short at this particular moment in time because of his immaturity to deal with scrutiny that he invites. And all of that comes into consideration when I think about the quarterback position. And I think that when you look at Sam Darnold in the New York market, having conducted himself the way that he has conducted himself, even though he's younger, he has proven that at least thus far, the Cleveland Browns made the wrong selection.
Look, Baker Mayfield, the jury is still out on him in reality. I mean, people have made... No problem. People have made their decision on Baker based on they went 7-9, and then they got more talent, and then they went 6-10. But Stephen A., it wasn't because of all the personalities that you didn't like the Browns. In fact, I recall the reason you didn't like the Browns was a rookie head coach who you felt hadn't earned the position in Freddie Kitchens, even though he'd worked well with Baker Mayfield. Greg Williams was the interim head coach during the time that they actually went on a little run in the second half 2 seasons ago. And you were right. Freddie Kitchens was a disaster. So now let's look at the Browns before and after Baker Mayfield, and when Baker Mayfield had a coach other than Freddie Kitchens, who was a disaster, or Hugh Jackson, who was the biggest disaster in the NFL in recent years as a head coach. Okay, they were 0-16 before they got Baker. And they went from that to 7-9. But importantly, the 7-9, the back half of that season when they had Greg Williams, they're 5-3. So think about that for a second. No Baker Mayfield, you lose not virtually every game, every single game. You get Baker and you win just about half your games. And the reason it wasn't actually half your games, or maybe more, is because you had the worst coach in the NFL at the time, at least by his track record over several seasons, until you got a different coach, and then he was over 500. And by the way, at one point, Dan, your memory may be better than mine on this. I think it was he was 17 of 18 on red zone trips to close out that season. Like, Baker was scoring all the time. He was close to top of the league in a lot of statistical categories that season under Greg Williams. And then Freddie Kitchens, and it was a disaster. But even a disaster nowadays with Baker is a 6-win season. So I know it looks bad for Baker right now. A lot of the things you said about him seem to be true, Stephen A., and yet you have to ask, can the guy lead a team to wins given the right coach? Yeah, it sure seems so. It sure seems like, in fact, with the right coach, he is a high-impact player at the quarterback position. He's still young, So it's too early to say that that guy is a bust as the #1 overall pick.
There's no chance that the Browns regret or think that they made a mistake taking Baker Mayfield #1. Now, both you guys bring up outstanding points. Stephen A., I would agree with you that even in that time, I had thought Sam Darnold should be the #1 pick. That was my thought process on what player I liked better. But Max, you bring up a ton of good points of what he has accomplished, even the way we look at it in comparison to what the case was beforehand. Now, his rookie year, he literally broke Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson's rookie passing touchdown records. So there's no way that we can sit there and go, wow, that we've had one really good year and one not so good year. Okay, so and this is in the midst of an organization that has constantly failed their players. I look at the situation on April 6th today, and the best way I could phrase it is hopefully the Browns and Baker Mayfield have stopped chasing the wrong things. Stephen A., you point out the commercials last year with Baker Mayfield, and then during the Super Bowl he was on ESPN and he had said, listen, I was bad this year. I had put my foot in my mouth way too many times, and I have to learn from that. And so for him to come out and say that, we're going to get the greatest off the field version of Baker Mayfield that we've gotten because of his maturity and growth process. So you don't regret taking that at #1. And the second thing is this. They finally, what seems to be a competent general manager and a competent head coach in Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. So I'm looking at this organization going, you're finally putting a player in position to be successful. All their players in positions to be successful. So the Browns, after one really good year and one not so good year, can't sit back and go, man, we regret taking Baker Mayfield. They're hopeful that he grows and develops and matures, and they finally put the people in place in head coach and general manager to make sure that he does that. So I still believe in Baker as their franchise quarterback.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.